So instead of, just breaking down our raw reactions, I wanted to go back and put out a timeline. So here it is. We're going to go through. Let's start April 17th, 2020. That's the DeAndre Hopkins trade. DeAndre Hopkins is essentially traded for a second round pick. I mean, you can add the bells and whistles to that trade, but essentially traded to the Cardinals for a 7th round pick. DeAndre Hopkins was reportedly very upset about that. Found out while he was training with his quarterback coach on social media, had gotten no prior warning or anything like that. There was actually a tweet that went out from the QB coach of his reaction on Twitter, reading it as it was happening. It was deleted very quickly afterwards, but you can go find that if you go looking for it. Fast forward to September 5th, 2020, DeAndre Hopkins signs a 4-year extension. He had 2 years left on his rookie deal, signs the 4-year extension worth $160 million, becomes the second highest paid quarterback behind my boy Mahomes over here. Yeah. Great deal. Honestly, got what he's worth, right? I think we would both agree with that. October 5th, we're going to fast forward again. October 5th. This is right after they lost their 4th consecutive game of the season. Lost to the Vikings by 8 points. Billy O'Brien is fired on October 5th. And I think that did have a lot to do with Watson and the rest of the team just really getting tired of their head coach. Fast forward again, and this is an interesting one. And I think this is something that not a lot of people are really talking about. But December 14th, 2020 is when a PFT report came out that Watson would be consulted with the next head coach and next GM. And I'm going to read to you, because I was looking at this quote a little bit earlier. I'm going to read to you the quote from DeShaun Watson and another quote from the article that basically I think is the precedence for why Watson has so much of a right to be upset. So right here it says, I mean, they just put a lot of trust in me and what things he wants and what I want. And just as a whole, as an organization, where we want to go forward from here, Watson said to the Houston Chronicle. We've got to make decisions and go from here. But yeah, that was pretty much it. A lot of respect between me and Mr. McNair. Okay, so that's what Watson said about this conversation. A quote from the article: McNair has made it clear to his quarterback that Watson's opinions matter when it comes to hiring the next head coach and hiring the next GM. And I want to pause there just for a second, because I do think that is a precedent to be upset, because in my personal opinion, a player does not have the right to decide who the next head coach is. A player does not have the right to decide who the next GM is. But if you tell him he's going to be a part of the conversation,
that's what I was about to say,
and don't make him part of the conversation, you have a right to be upset. If I tell you, hey, I'm gonna write an outline for this show, I want you to look at it and let me know what you like and don't like, and I never send you that outline, I never let you decide what's on the show, do you have a right to be upset?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Expand that by about 1,000 in an NFL team. Yeah. I think that is an absolute fair reason. I am not a proponent of the players deciding their next head coach. Not at all. That's not what this article said. That's not what was ever said. But it was made clear that he would at least have a voice that his voice would be considered. Not that he was making a decision.
I think that's smart, because if you know that you just paid your generational franchise quarterback, this is the guy that you were sticking with for the long term, he needs to, like you said, not choose it, not pull the LeBron James basketball and make all the moves. Yeah. But he does need to be in the room and have his input felt. And yeah, it's a slap in the face.
Yeah. So that happens December 14th. Let's fast forward to January 7th of 2021. That's when the Texans hire Nick Caserio. Now, this is a candidate that they tried to hire a couple years ago out of the Patriots organization. That didn't happen for legal reasons, and that's a whole other thing that we're not going to get into today. But that same day, reports start surfacing that Watson found out on social media again. Remember, on April 17th, he found out on social media about his biggest and best weapon being traded. And then he finds out again on social media that a GM has been hired, and the names that he gave, and this is all according to Adam Schefter, the names that he gave the organization that he would like to at least be consulted or considered for the job were not consulted, were not considered. They were not even a part of the conversation. And actually, Cal McNair and Bob McNair, the owner and CEO of the Texans, they made this decision despite what the search committee or whatever suggestions gave. That's a whole other thing. Another report comes out the same day that Ian Rappaport says that Watson was extremely unhappy. So, multiple reports coming out that he's upset, that Eric Bieniemy was the top choice for from Watson and the team. And you got to remember, Watson has always stated throughout this entire thing that he speaks for himself and also the team. He feels like he's the leader of the team and he speaks for the team. So that's constantly brought up throughout this whole process. Eric Bieniemy had not been granted an interview until today. As of recording this, on January 12th, they gave him an interview almost a week after this whole thing. And the fact that Eric Bieniemy isn't at the top of your interview list is insulting, wrong, disrespectful.
It's at best.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. All right, so fast forward 2 more days. January 10th, Chris Mortensen reports that DeShaun Watson would waive his no trade clause in his contract to be dealt to the Dolphins in exchange for Tua and obviously some other picks. But it's just another thing. Before then, for like 3 days between the 7th and 10th, everyone was kind of like, man, is he going to get traded? Everyone's like, oh shit, could this actually happen? Like these rumors started to appear. It started to become clear, like serious issues. It's almost a year now of the organization disrespecting Deshaun Watson in Deshaun Watson's eyes. All right. And I'll, in my personal opinion, disrespecting Deshaun Watson. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Let's get your thoughts, and then I want to add one more thing to this timeline at the very end. But just your thoughts on what's going on right now.
Man, I mean, there's been a lot of times that I feel like the Texans organization as a whole has pissed off its players. Let's go back, I think maybe 2 years ago, to where they had a Halloween party and the owner showed up dressed as a what's it called, a prison owner,
a ward?
Oh, yeah, dressed up as a warden.
Okay.
And it really pissed off Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
I remember that report coming in particular that Jadeveon felt like, oh, you're showing up acting like we're your prisoners. And I know you didn't read this because I specifically left this out of the rundown for because I wanted to kind of surprise you and get your raw reaction to this. But that feeds into exactly what my next point is. Another thing that Chris Mortensen said on the 10th was that he is also upset about the insensitivity to social justice issues. Yeah.
And that brings me back to another date, October 27th, 2017. The owner of the Texans, Bob McNair, his quote that became very popular, "We can't have the inmates running the prison."
Yeah, and that adds up to him showing up and dressing up as a warden to a Halloween
you
party.
Mentioned the insensitivities. I'm mentioning the quote that just went viral, and he did end up apologizing, and he claimed that he was talking about other things or whatever. So there's another side to that story. But there is certainly a narrative that, and I'm not going to accuse anybody of anything. I don't think it's fair for somebody who's never met the dude or anything like that to make serious accusations. But there is certainly a narrative that can be spun that there's some serious racial issues with the ownership.
Listen,
is that fair to say?
It's a shitty analogy.
It is.
That's even if you're on Bob McNair's side. It's like, man, if you're trying to make a comparison, like I see what he is saying, not dissecting that analogy alone. But, you're saying that you are the owner. You can't have every single player's voice be 100% because it just doesn't work like that. There's no way. That's impossible.
Yeah.
Say it like that, man. Don't say we can't have the inmates running the prison as in these guys are jailed and stuck under your leadership.
Add to the fact that up until today, up until serious backlash, and in my opinion, really only interviewing him to appease their star quarterback, they weren't willing to even interview what I would argue is the most highly qualified guy for the next head coaching position, who just happens to be African American. It's alarming to me in a lot of different ways. I want to leave it there because I don't want to get into a situation where I'm speculating on serious issues that are outside my right to speculate. So I'll leave it there. But needless to say, a ton of issues. I do believe there is more than just what's being reported. I do believe there's some serious concerns in that locker room. Whether they're founded or not, I think they're there, and I think they're very real.
I'll go as far to say that if they don't get Bieniemy, I think Watson's gone.